Laziness is not a character trait. It is a system error. And once you see it, you won't be able to disentangle it. You've been told all your life that you're lazy, that you lack discipline, that you just need to pull yourself together. But let's be honest, if you were the problem, you couldn't work for hours on something you like. You couldn't hang on your phone without getting tired. You couldn't become productive at the last moment before a deadline. This is not laziness. This is selective energy. Your brain isn't stupid. It always chooses the safest and most predictable path. When a task seems complex, vague, or unpleasant, the brain activates its defenses. He doesn't tell you directly that you are afraid or overwhelmed. He gives you a sense of laziness. And you believe it. The hand reaches for the phone. Thoughts start to float. There is a desire to postpone for later. This is not an accident. This is an automatic scenario that runs every time the brain sees a threat in the form of uncertainty or effort. The most dangerous thing about it is that you start to perceive it as a part of your personality. You think you're like that. What others do, but you don't. But here's the tipping point. If this is a system, then it can be rewritten. And you don't need motivation for that. Strict discipline is not needed. No need to wait for the perfect condition. You need input into the action. A small, almost imperceptible, but precise entry into the action. In the next few minutes, you will see how to get around this system error and launch yourself without violence against yourself. Now the main thing is to understand why exactly 5 minutes can break something that you couldn't handle for weeks. Your brain evaluates any task not by the actual volume, but by the feeling of the input. If the input seems heavy, it blocks the action. If the entrance is simple, it lets you through. That's where the cheating happens. And the brain makes a logical conclusion. It is expensive in terms of energy. It's better to postpone. Your brain evaluates any task not by the actual volume, but by the feeling of the input. If the input seems heavy, it blocks the action. When you think about a task, you don't imagine the first step, but the whole path at once. It's a complicated project, a long job, fatigue, mistakes. But if you reduce the input to a minimum, the system breaks down. And at that moment, the brain's defenses just don't activate. You're starting. 5 minutes doesn't look dangerous. 5 minutes is not scary. 5 minutes doesn't require any effort that you want to avoid. And something is happening that no one is talking about. Inertia is activated after the start. The brain has already switched to action mode. The resistance is falling. You're getting involved. One thing is important to understand. 5 minutes is not the way to do all the work. This is a way to trick the login system. This is the same effect that causes you to open your phone for a minute and disappear for a long time. Only now you're using it to your advantage. Now let's get to the most important part. How to run it in real life, and not leave it at the idea level. Imagine a normal situation. You're sitting down. You have a task ahead of you. You know it needs to be done. But there is emptiness and resistance inside. There is no need to think at this moment. Generally, any thought is working against you right now. Your task is extremely S. You don't set a goal to finish. You set a goal to start. And once you start, you have a chance to continue. No pressure. Without a fight. Just because you're already inside the process. This is the point where laziness ceases to exist. Stand up. This is the first step. Don't analyze, just lift the body. Physical movement breaks the procrastination cycle because it changes the state of mind. Remove the main source of the attention drain. Telephone. Put it down so that it needs to be reached. Even this small distance already creates a barrier. Now choose the smallest step in the task. Not a plan, not a strategy, a specific action. Open the document, write one line, read one paragraph, and start the timer for 5 minutes. An important point. You give yourself permission to stop after that. Without guilt, without obligation to continue. You're starting. The first few seconds will be weird. Your brain is still trying to bring you back. There are thoughts of distraction. But if you continue with at least minimal action, a switch occurs. You enter the stream. After a few minutes, you're no longer the person who couldn't get started. You're inside the process. And now you have a choice to continue. And more often than not, you keep going. Now let's look at the traps that bring you back. Remove it from the instant access zone. Not on the table, not in the hand. Any distance creates a pause, and a pause gives you a chance to turn on awareness. The first trap is the phone. He's always there. He always offers easy pleasure without effort. The brain instantly chooses it because there is no risk of error and no stress. As a result, you don't even notice the moment when you've already gone into. It is important to change the rule here. Your first version must be bad. Especially, this reduces the pressure and opens up access to action. The third trap is waiting for the state. You're waiting for the mood, the energy, the desire to appear. The second trap is perfectionism. You think you need to do well from the very beginning. As a result, you don't start at all. The brain sees a high bar and blocks the entrance. Now you need to fix it so that you don't have to fight yourself all over again every time. The secret is to remove the need for a decision. By the time you think about starting or not, you're already losing. The system must start by itself. But the truth is that the state comes after the action, not before it. If you wait, you may never start. Each of these traps works automatically. But now you see them, which means you can bypass it. You take a sip of water and begin the first step. You turn on the light in the room and start the timer. What matters is not the trigger itself, but the bundle. A signal always leads to action. Another key point is simplicity. Without discussion inside the head. At first it seems artificial. But the brain learns quickly. He begins to connect one with the other. And after a while, you don't have to force yourself anymore. The body itself goes into action after the signal. That's the goal. Now it is important to consolidate the result so that it is not a one-time burst of productivity. Most people make the same mistake. They've started, they've felt the flow, and they're trying to get the most out of themselves. The simpler the trigger, the better it works. No need for complicated rituals. One signal, one action. You take away the chaos and replace it with a system. And at some point you find yourself starting to work without even noticing it. A trigger is created for this purpose. A simple, intuitive signal, after which you automatically start the action. It could be anything. You sit down at the table and immediately open the required file. If you are exhausted after work, the system makes a conclusion. It was hard. It's dangerous. Next time, you need to resist harder. Therefore, the key principle sounds unusual. They work until they are exhausted, until the energy runs out. And the next day, everything comes back. Why is this happening? The brain remembers not only the action, but also the sensation after it. Stop earlier than you want to. At the peak of energy. When you feel like you've gotten involved, that you can continue, that's when you finish. This creates the opposite effect. This is how the cycle is formed. An easy start, a short action, early completion, a positive feeling, now the final moment, which decides whether it will remain just an idea or become an action. Repeat this several times and you will see that the resistance disappears by itself. This is no longer a fight against laziness. This is a system in which laziness simply has no place. The brain records. It was easy. This can be repeated. It's like you're leaving the task at the peak of your energy, not at the bottom of your fatigue. And it gets easier to start next time. Because there is no fear of overload inside. You already understand that laziness is not you. It's a mechanism. And the next few minutes after that moment, they close this video and think they will start later. When there's time. When you feel like it. And it's the same scenario again. That's why it's not the next day that's important right now. No plans for the future. You know that entering a task solves more than willpower. You've seen how to get around the resistance through a simple action. But there is one trap that almost everyone falls into. Choose one task, any kind, not perfect, not the most important one. Just the one you've been putting off. Get up, remove all distractions. Take the minimum step. Start your 5 minutes. Without preparation, without thinking. You're not trying to change your life. You just get into the action. And if you do that right now, you'll realize one thing. You've always had control. It's just that the system was working against you. Now the system works for you.